buenas. Estamos aquí, ya preparados, listos, para comenzar con la conferencia inaugural de esta jornada híbrida. Para ello hemos invitado a Sara Kenderdine. Es un placer, es un verdadero honor y placer tenerla aquí. Ella nos va a hablar sobre la museología computacional, interfaces para el Big Data cultural. Sara es un referente a nivel internacional en cuanto al uso de la tecnología digital en museos, la utilización de pantallas. Es un referente que está trabajando en estos ámbitos una mujer, porque no siempre tenemos que tener en el ámbito de la tecnología el respaldo de los hombres, sino las mujeres son las que están liderando, como bien ha comentado Pablo también en esta mesa, con lo cual es un referente ineludible que queríamos traer al Congreso y que es un verdadero placer que venga a hablarnos. La traducción está, la conferencia será en inglés y estará traducida simultáneamente a castellano. Si no tenéis, si queréis, podéis recoger los pinganillos, los audífonos para la traducción simultánea. Sara es profesora en la École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, donde ella lidera el laboratorio de museología experimental, un referente donde exploran la convergencia del patrimonio cultural, las tecnologías digitales de imagen, la visualización inmersiva, la estética digital y los Big Data. Desde 2017, Sara es directora y curadora principal del EPFL Pavilions, una nueva iniciativa de arte y ciencia, y en 2021 Sara fue nombrada Corresponding Fellow de la Academia Británica. Investiga la vanguardia de las experiencias interactivas e inmersivas para galerías, bibliotecas, archivos y museos. Trabaja en la creación de obras e instalaciones ampliamente exhibidas, donde experimentan y fusionan patrimonio cultural tangible e intangible con la práctica artística y los nuevos medios, especialmente en los ámbitos de cine interactivo, realidad aumentada y narrativa personificada. En esta conferencia, Sara nos va a hablar sobre la museología computacional, interfaces para Big Data cultural. La museología computacional es un andamiaje que une la inteligencia de las máquinas con la curación de datos, la ontología y la visualización de las comunidades de públicos y profesionales con la participación a través de interfaces interactivas e inmersivas. Es un placer tenerla hoy aquí. Sara, por favor, cuando quieras.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to the university and to the co-directors of CIMED 2022, Anna Marti and Concha Roda, I offer my profound thanks for including me in this event. It's been beautifully organized. It has a very rich program full of wonderful speakers, so thank you very much. I'm just going to restart this video. There we go. Computational museology, the title of this talk, is a term that allows us to link all forms of cultural materiality, objects, knowledge systems, representation and participation, underscored by positional shifts occurring in digital archives from object orientations to computing with multiple dimensions, segmentation, analytics and visualization. Computational museology harnesses the potential for computational practices within museological domains. This talk explores what unites machine intelligence with data curation, ontology with visualization, and communities of publics and practitioners with embodied interaction through immersive interfaces. Our era, it has been said, has created a paradigm of users who transform physical assets of cultural organizations into digital assets to be uploaded, downloaded, visualized, shared. Users who treat institutions not as storehouses of physical objects, but rather as data sets to be manipulated. In counterpoint to this presentation explores the ways in which these mechanistic descriptions of database logic can be transformed and computation can become experiential, spatial, and materialized, embedded and embodied in the everyday workings of museums and the wider realms of archives and libraries. It was at the birth of the information age in the 1950s that the prominent designer Georgi Kepesh of MIT said, information abundance should be a landscape of the senses that organizes both perception and practice. This felt order, he said, should be a source of beauty, data transformed from its measured quantities and recreated as sensed forms exhibiting the properties of harmony, rhythm, and proportion. For those of you I haven't met before, for the last 20-odd years, I've been designing large-scale frameworks for public engagement with cultural heritage and sciences. This work was originally located at Museum Victoria in Melbourne, where I started to design and build these large-scale experiences for mass public. I then started to work with universities to help sustain this kind of infrastructure and its research across the GLAM sector, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums sector. I co-established the Applied Laboratory for Interactive Visualization and Embodiment at the Science Park in Hong Kong, returned to Australia to build the Expanded Perception and Interaction Centre at the University of New South Wales. Here, so you know what you're looking at, on the right-hand side of the screen is a small 7-meter diameter visualization environment. It's comprised of 56 projectors and a 29 computer cluster. It's at the edge of human visual acuity and was designed to solve visualization problems for complexity in big data in the humanities and the sciences. And now in a 1,500 square meter warehouse in EPFL in Switzerland, we've designed and built 12 large-scale systems that offer us strategies for multi-sensory engagement, emphasizing human-to-human as well as human-to-machine interaction, giving us powerful ways to reformulate narrative in a digital context. And in participation with diverse communities, the Laboratory for Experimental Museology blends experimental curatorship and contemporary aesthetics with open science, digital humanism, and emerging technologies. My research harnesses technologies that have unprecedented abilities to capture the world around us. Laser scanning, for example, collects billions of points to represent places such as these heads at Mount Rushmore scanned by the Scottish 10. We can create precious objects in 3D and peer inside to see what was previously unseen. We can capture art in a way that allows us to zoom into the tiniest brushstroke to reveal more than the naked eye can see. Advances in machine learning are also an emerging trend in our work. We recently installed the photogrammetric model of Nefertari's tomb, which was collected with only 8 hours of photography by one person, in which machine learning is used to create a model of billions of points. This model is transferred to our 360 3D environment at 40 million pixels. It's the world's first demonstrator of Unreal Engine's end display technology synchronized across a powerful 11 PC graphics cluster. And we're also capturing intangible heritage through various forms of motion capture and motion over time analytics and ontologies. The themes that I want to explore with you today are both theoretical, explored through applied interfaces to cultural imaginaries, augmenting objects, computational archives, the deep maps, embodied knowledge systems, and I hope we have enough time at the end to present Deep Fakes, an exhibition that converges many of these themes that was recently at the EPFL Pavilions. Immersive experiences are synonymous with many sensorial attributes, not only vision, but also a range of acoustic, kinesthetic, and somatic characteristics. Immersion is also emotional, emerging through the dynamics of affecting and being affected. It is characterized by a dense involvement of the subject in an interactive and interaffective context that entangles feeling, thinking, and acting. The dome of the Prince of Wales Museum was adopted as the epicenter of an artistic exploration that specifically focuses the ceiling architectures of Mumbai's heritage and contemporary buildings and transforms them into an urban celestial imaginary. Mumbai's architectural heritage is unrivaled in India. The city has one of the largest representations of grand neo-Gothic style architecture, numerous examples of Indo-Saracenic architecture, and one of the world's largest numbers of Art Deco buildings. We shot 160 gigapixel images throughout the city. This is the Baujilard Museum, but also Terminal 2, the new Mumbai airport. We took the 6-meter dome from my lab and placed it under the 60-foot domed ceiling of the museum, and it allowed 2,000 people to rediscover their city with fresh eyes. Open to all, it gave new perspectives on the many spaces that are socially exclusive despite their public heritage status. The work uses a computer vision algorithm that randomly selects any pair of images and creates a unique transition between them. So in effect, you could lie there all day and never see the same thing twice. This concept of an experiential domed environment emerged from attempts to stimulate the spherical gestalt of the human visual field and was designed to exploit and extend sensory perception. In collaboration with the National Museum of Australia, we created 2 dome experiences, travelling Kankarangalpa, the songline of the Seven Sisters. This songline portrays one of the most defining and predominant meta-narratives chronicled in ancient mainland Australia, but had never been told in the public domain until this exhibition. The project itself was 7 years in the making, from the day that the Anugu elders came to the museum and asked for help to keep this songline alive. The first work involved photogrammetry of a sacred cave that had never been photographed before, time-lapse photography, drone-based panoramas, gigapixel imaging, as well as ambisonics, allowing visitors intimate views of the stories contained within its sandstone folds. The digital dome was used for this project to simultaneously express the sphere of the world around us, not only the sky above, but the ground below. Archaic dome theatres, typified by rock art caves found throughout Australia, it can be argued that these ancient caves, where etchings and paintings were animated by fire and torchlight, represent the beginnings of a cinematic imaginary and were arguably the first immersive experiences created by humankind. The second dome journey immerses visitors in projected artworks of the songline made by the custodians of the story. Here you see these wonderful jumpy grass figures. They're trussed grass, and they were collected by the museum. This is a ceremony singing these figures off the land and to their final destination in the night sky, but also inside the museum. We were able to make photogrammetric models of them, and then we worked with the Matu artists who created a range of specific depictions of each part of the narrative. Often their images were displaying almost perfect mathematical fisheye distortion required for full dome projection. And here a complex set of interpretations led to the narrative that unfolded in these animations. This is a shot from the opening of this exhibition, and it won all the major awards in that year for museums in Australia and is now touring the world. And what was most important about it was this lengthy and complex gestation period of 7 years, which resulted in a watershed of curatorial and Indigenous relations in Australia. What's also pivotal is that it was a research infrastructure grant that enabled us to build a full dome system for 5 museum partners. Once the exhibition was a success, the National Museum was empowered to invest in their own full dome, which is now on tour around the world. It opened a few months ago in the UK, actually a while ago in the UK, and it's currently at the Humboldt Forum in Berlin, and will tour to the Quai Branly in Paris in March next year. Journeying from ancient Australia to ancient China, the Donghuang Caves in the Gobi Desert of northernmost China are at the nexus of the Silk Road. It's a World Heritage Site with 492 caves carved into this escarpment. Inside are 45,000 square meters of painted frescoes and over 2,500 statues crafted by Buddhist monks over a period of 1,000 years. This sublime art treasury is like nothing else in the Chinese Buddhist world. Most of these caves are permanently closed to the public to ensure their preservation, and the digital is the only mode of visitation in an era characterized by heritage at risk. These caves are under serious threat from increasing tourism and microclimate change, and an enormous preservation effort is underway. Between 60 and 90 full-time photographers are working there, and it takes 3 months to digitize a single cave, laser scanning, camera array photography, everything stitched together inside the cave. The Pure Land projects activate the kinesthetic spatial responses of their viewers and give us important insights into interfaces in the museological domain. Pure Land AR was originally created for Art Basel in Hong Kong. The wireframe from the laser scan printed on the walls of an exhibition booth at 1:1 scale. And here you're using a tablet like a window on the world to walk inside the digital model at 1:1 scale. It has important insights for us in terms of museum interfaces. Firstly, the way in which it harnesses socialization around a single screen. This is at the core of the museological experience. It's not about giving everybody their own device. It's really about how you harness these exchanges. Interfaces that are for young kids, middle-aged ladies, grandmother, grandchild. Grandmother abandons the grandchild, actually. So non-ageist interfaces are very important. And here, the third most noteworthy quality of this, the wife takes an iPad from her handbag. She films her husband's experience as if they were really there. It was also reformed as an interactive experience for the World Economic Forum in Dalian, and again in 360 3D. Indeed, it's a single data set that was used to create 5 completely different museum installations, and they've been seen by millions of people worldwide. And it's this malleability of digital data that is one of its intrinsic qualities. Augmenting objects. Interfaces are often able to embrace the spatial formats of their originating media. So in the Amaki Navigator, this was a project designed for 3 hand scrolls, the poetry contest of the 12 zodiac animals. And from a physically embodied point of view, visitors reveal each of these 17th century hand scrolls along their entire length. Each scroll is approximately 12 meters long, and this is the same length as the navigation system itself. So it's a horizontal narration system that responds to visitors' interests, and dynamic touchscreens travel along this motorized railing, revealing the full length of each Amaki. So it operates in the original reading direction from right to left, but it also allows visitors to jump between the 3 scrolls and to focus on particular points of interest. It uses ultra-high resolution imaging. This was done by the custodian of the objects, the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin, and it enables zooming into details that are too small for the naked eye to see, providing this unparalleled intimacy with the materiality of each. Here you can see a little bit of video. It's not so easy to show this screen traveling along, but it is currently traveling along the 12 meters. Audio compositions for this work are dynamic, and they emerge from visitor interactions and add narrative drama as the animals engage in the poetry contest or embark into battle. This pan-aesthetic experience emulates the reading of traditional hand scrolls, while also transforming visitor involvement in an interactive and non-linear narrative-enabling interface. This painting is a section of the Swiss Battle of Confederation, which took place in 1476, and it was painted in 1893 during the heyday of the panoramic form. It's a celebration of a major battle in European history, and also the starting point of the expansion of Switzerland and mercenary businesses in the early modern period. It's considered really a Swiss icon, very fundamental in Swiss identity, and it's one of 5 remaining classic painted panoramas in Switzerland. There are only 15 in the world today. It was painted by Louis Braun with 40 assistants. We have many detailed studies and drawings. It was only ever shown for about 7 years during this early period in the late 1800s. Abandoned, rediscovered, and a massive conservation effort, which took 6 years, took place in 1997, and the whole thing was conserved at that point. And then Jean Nouvel built a box for it, and it was floated on the Lake of Merton for the World Expo in 2002. So it was seen for 6 months. It was returned to storage, in fact, a military bunker in Switzerland. And we recently moved these 3 scrolls from military storage to my laboratory. The whole thing is 100 meters long by 10 meters high, and each of these scrolls weighs about 1.5 tons. So we're undertaking a massive reconservation effort just to check the condition of all of these 3 scrolls that make up the painting. We're creating a digital twin using a 150 megapixel camera from phase 1, and this enables us to stitch 400,000 images together at 1,000 dpi. It's 1.6 trillion pixels. It will be the largest image ever created of an object. We'll create a full data science backend to this with X and Y metadata query systems, full image tiling and zooming, and also multiple resolution outputs on requested systems. We're also using computer vision and machine learning to detect major destruction within the painting, and we will automatically apply digital in-painting and modest digital restoration for some of the big damage. This is not to affect the original archival quality images. And we don't wish to create an entirely synthetic copy either. Then there are a whole series of exhibitions planned that allow us to use the baseline panorama, zooming in, zooming out, dynamic sound, so on. But then looking at motion capture of medieval reenactment fighters, so different fight techniques, different armies, and the scenes, sub-scenes, and objects that appear in the scene will be different digital layers on top of the panorama itself. So it will be designed for 360 3D, but a whole series of smaller installations are also possible. Once you have these systems in a games engine, you can pretty much do anything and redeploy them in smaller institutions. Also, of course, Linear Navigator is an obvious one for a panorama. It will be installed, we hope, in many of the major train stations, apart from major museums in Switzerland. So even before database logic pervaded our thinking, the museum was marked by profound shifts in our understanding of archives. In modernity, the archive was first described as a product of bureaucracy, designed to be used as an instrument of management and power, as Michel Foucault set out in The Archaeology of Knowledge in 1969. In Archive Fever, Jacques Derrida in 1996 describes mechanization and digitization of archival materials which has created instant access to databases employing efficient dendritic classification and retrieval. And this is really where most of us are at today. But new archival access modalities are seeking the properties of recollection, regeneration, and reworking. Some people call this remediation. They're dynamic archives corresponding to a move from classification to remix, a paradigmatic shift from orthodox models of stewardship to one of co-production. And what we need now are new prosthetic architectures for public engagement with this kind of cultural memory. So we know at most major museums there's only a fraction of the collection on display. Smithsonian, it's 2%. British Museum, 0.4%. For Museum Victoria, 0.85% of its 16 million objects are on display. So we created them a massive data browser. It's 100,000 objects which are temporally distributed across 18 themes. You can travel in the Z-axis as far as the eye can see. And the metadata, 25 fields of metadata in this case, links all of these objects together, including indigenous materials, social history, and natural sciences. You can zoom into the images. It creates a wordle from the description of the object. You can access the original object description. And most importantly, it makes these metadata-driven relationships across these disparate themes. So it acts like a real-time curating machine where you'll always be presented with the unexpected. There is no text-based search engine in such a system, and it uses audio from the museum collections, which is emergent as you travel through this vast world. So that's for objects. It only took us 15 minutes to get that data from the museum database system. So these are incredibly powerful resources to be using. Similarly, moving image archives are the major records of the 20th and 21st century, and yet they are vast in scale and they are linear in shape. And they make it extremely difficult for museums to display this material. They're problematic for access reasons. So we're involved in a series of ongoing experimentations in this area with mass moving image archives. And Jazz Luminaries is based on constellation of jazz performers. It's coming from EPFL digitized UNESCO Memory of the World Montreux Jazz Archive. The installation cuts, remixes, and replays 5,400 artists and 13,000 videos from a total archive of 11,000 hours of video. So the neural net-like image that you see here is based on the social network of the artists. The clustering is based on the numbers of times an artist played with another artist. So at the very center of that spaghetti lies B.B. King, the most prolific collaborator. Visitors lie under the dome and they use a spherical interface to navigate inside this constellation, emulating the hemisphere of the full dome in which it's staged. The search paradigm is akin to tuning a radio, search by listening, circumventing the lack of public knowledge into who the jazz greats are. Hearing what you like drives the design to unfold in 3 layers: a sample, all songs, full song. And one of our current projects is Narratives from the Long Tail, which brings together 120,000 hours of video from major collections and applies a series of computational techniques to be able to engage and extract material from these archives without text-based search engines. So we're dealing with archival semantics, narrative visualization, and experimental museology with this exemplar set of material. The theoretical framework for the next section lies in deep mapping and carto-criticism. And we know that we need to reconceive interpretations of the map as moving, embodied, social, technical, and emotive, and as opportunities to represent alternative visual solutions to the specific problems of depicting and describing time and space. Conceiving of maps through a deep mapping schema posits that they're never fully formed, they're not static, but they emerge in navigational processes where everything is on the move. The Atlas of Maritime Buddhism is based on the compelling story of the spread of Buddhism from India through the seaports of Southeast Asia and the South China Sea, supported by archaeological and historical evidence that's never been brought together before. The spread of Buddhist doctrines from India to China triggered a profusion of cross-cultural exchanges and had a profound impact on Asian and world history. But this atlas is also of contemporary relevance to the socio-economic and political transformation of the world by the Chinese government initiative known as One Belt, One Road. Our atlas counterbalances prevailing narratives that have neglected the importance of Pan-Asian maritime countries and Buddhist entrepreneurship in the expansion of trade from the 2nd century BC through to the 14th century AD. We start in the rock-cut caves of India, and the aim of this research is to develop a pioneering narrative-driven deep mapping schema, a kind of information visualization framework that can allow us to explore narrative patterns, processes, and phenomena in the atlas. So it actually completes what one could call the great circle of Buddhism, and the maritime component has never been told in the public domain before. So we shot hundreds and hundreds of sites across 7 countries. It's funded by a research grant. Thousands of locations were recorded in ultra-high resolution 3D panoramic and spherical imaging. We record contemporary Buddhist practices to supplement all the archaeological material, both ambisonics and here a morning prayer in Bihar. Photogrammetry is also a very vital component of this data capture process, including this is Jayavarman VII from the National Museum in Cambodia. Shwagdam Pagoda, the most revered sites in Burma. The great universities of Buddhist scholarship, such as Nalanda in Bihar, which flourished in the 5th century, Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka, the largest brick temple at that time. Gilvahara in Polonnaruwa, which exhibits the best examples of Sinhalese sculpting, from mist encapsulated Borobudur to monsoonal Ayutthaya in Thailand. So covering all of these sites. We've had 3 major exhibitions so far. The one in Taiwan is a permanent exhibition. It's currently receiving about 10,000 visitors a day. And we had one in Hong Kong and a touring exhibit in China. So these are just shots from this show. We mix both real sculpture and digital materials closely together, and a 360 3D that allows visitors to experience many thousands of locations, a linear navigator, The iDome used for hemispherical video of contemporary practices. This is from a temple in Ningbo in China. And a whole range of strategies for being able to explore this material. So this is a gallery installation which uses spherical gigapixel images and augmented reality technology. Many of the Buddha and Bodhisattva sculptures are really, really fundamental in this project, and many have not been seen outside of their country of origin before. And so the digital twins are instrumental in finding new solutions for distributed and collective ownership and in context of much needed repatriation. They can be secured potentially on the blockchain with smart contracts in the distributed digital ledger and so on. So that's a whole new strand of research that we're doing with IIT in Jodhpur using Gupta sculpture artifacts. But this is one installation that was built for this material. It's double truth. And in this, participants rotate a human-scale viewing platform and circumambulate, generating dynamic temporal sequences to reveal 15 of these sculptures one by one. Reversing the platform, meanwhile, reveals unexpected materialities. Icons melt, fragment, and refold in a series of computer graphic transformations and visualizations. The acoustic realm is also augmented sonification of each sculpture with rare ethnographic archival recordings from all of the Southeast Asian countries. And two truths in Mahayana Buddhism are the truths of the mundane and of the absolute. And as we know in art history, sculpture itself also has this double truth, both noun and verb, at once frontality and multiplicity. While UNESCO and ICOM definitions have forged a new framework for intangible cultural heritage recognition, we have yet to resolve the challenges of archiving the live or authenticating its processes of transmission in the public domain. As a result, digitally enabled ICH research lags significantly behind that of tangible heritage, and ICH curation remains dominated by modes of representation from the late 19th century that manifest today in linear audiovisual forms. And computational museology approaches this challenge with strategies for whole-of-environment encoding. Hong Kong is an extraordinary reservoir of intangible heritage, primarily of Hakka people. From the early to mid-20th century, Hong Kong provided refuge for teeming thousands of immigrants from mainland China, amongst them some of the most prominent martial artists in the world. With globalization, urbanization, and dwindling numbers of practitioners, this living heritage made internationally so famous by Jackie Chan, Gordon Liu, and Hong Kong cinema is now in danger of becoming lost. The Living Archive is a 4D typology based on extensive motion capture and a host of green screen and high-speed video methods created in collaboration with the masters. We currently have completed 130 sets of empty hand and weapon sequences, 19 styles by 33 elite practitioners. The repertoire is based on Taolu prearranged movement sequences, which are used for learning, practicing, and performing traditional martial arts. And these are mnemonic aids, whereby learning consists of memorization and through imitation and repetition. So this is Oscar. Both his father and his great-great-grandfather were Kung Fu masters. And we see here, obviously, a motion model from motion capture and a motion signature, left hand, right foot, foot, and the Dantian point in the center of the body. We've had 9 exhibitions worldwide, and a permanent museum and archive center for the digital materials is currently under construction in Hong Kong under the auspices of the Hong Kong government. We also have PhDs who continue to work on this material in Cantonese, in Hong Kong, and also in Switzerland. So one of the central features is a 6-sided of these vast exhibitions, so I can only show you a fragment, is a 6-sided rear projected system that allows visitors to walk around and view the masters from any point of view at 1-to-1 scale. Through an interactive application, the various Kung Fu moves can be reinterpreted as a series of motion over time analysis. This analysis relates to speed on the body at any moment in time. Brian Rotman, theorist, uses the term corporeal gestural haptic writing that recognizes motion capture as a continuous topological model which allows for the easier retainment of the effective qualities of movement. And he puts motion capture at the forefront of the documentation pipeline, if you like. And the difference between capture and notation is critical here. Instead of translating movement into symbols as speech is transposed into writing, gestural haptic writing becomes a mediating technology that escapes purely the signification or the representational and operates in these immersive systems. The performance theorist Diana Taylor has positioned the archive as a resource that possesses knowledge transfer capabilities that are expanded by the repertoire, where the true locus of knowledge is always in the body. She says, embodied and performed acts record, generate, and transmit knowledge, and these museological interfaces are created to help sustain or support knowledge transfer amongst novice publics. And just to finish, I'll introduce this exhibition, Deepfakes Art in Its Double, which was designed to pose crucial questions about the potency of digital replicas to absorb audiences in enduring emotional encounters with universal art treasures. This is the EPFL Pavilions, which is an art science initiative which I direct at the university. The exhibition was about 1,000 square meters in Pavilion A and B. I'll just run a series of slides of images of this exhibition. The exhibition took the provocative title Deep Fakes, yet it opposes the popular usage of deep fakes for the manipulation and misinformation to explore very different perspectives, reimagining objects through advanced computational techniques. Decades of computer science and engineering have revolutionized the tenets of verisimilitude and representation. Today's perfect pixels coalesce in imaging techniques designed to replicate cultural artifacts with ultimate fidelity, simultaneously as algorithms and computer vision reperform and reprocess the digitally visible. They're exposing the optical unconscious of art, calling us to re-examine once again objecthood itself. Remediated through participatory interfaces such as mixed, augmented, and virtual realities, Deepfakes Art in Its Double creates new performative platforms for the complex archetypes that emerge out of computational practices as they intersect with art heritage. Through 21 installations, the exhibition is equally focused on affirming and activating visitors' sensory experiences, while also grappling with the critical implications of digital materialities that objects possess in post-original form. Cultural deepfakes have manifold significance. They are technologically empowered to offer forensic insights into invisible dimensions, generating unforeseen hypotheses and connections. These art science phenomena also propagate powerful aura, or auras, which rise to the surface entangled with the effective qualities of the originating sources. Such augmented replicas are able to draw us into unparalleled tactility with the textures, patinas, and geometries of their counterparts. With its propensity for peripheral vision, machine learning has amplified the possible futures for curatorial and artistic practices, antagonizing outdated notions of authority, authenticity, and access. These practices are generating perpetually new archival entities, concurrently formed and formless. Digital facsimiles also decolonize matter as they defy hegemonic narratives, helping to liberate things from their colonial entrapments, confronting authoritative discourse, historical sedimentation, and contested social relations. In cases of heritage at risk due to warfare, iconoclasm, and climatic catastrophe, digital copies have enabled communities to become more resilient to loss. They can also provide reservoirs of cultural memory and instruments for those on the margins to speak back to their oppressors. Vital issues for cultural deepfakes include how the encryption of digital counterparts in place of originals is exploding systems and codes of ownership, custodianship, and repatriation. Meanwhile, the accumulation and exploitation of digital patrimonial capital, cultural capital by technological elites unnervingly reenacts colonial constructs. Synchronously, new forms of cryptographic control, such as non-fungible tokens, are being enabled for the network circulation of art. Promoting the blockchain as a potential dominion of arbitrary value is the hallmark of the intensification of late capitalism's newest investment for its enmeshed cultural objects, rather than their depropriation in the commons. Deepfakes art in its double is a cumulative narrative that embarks on these cross-cutting themes, traversing the simulacrum, mirror worlds, digital twins, cryptocurrency, and machine intelligence, while engaging with traditional issues of mimesis, reenactment, memory, and decolonization. The exhibition's installations cycle us through some of the antitheses around which the history of art has been circumscribed. As postmodernism recedes, taking with it the assumed meaning of things, cultural deepfakes have become a central pivot for this dialectic. Recognizing the importance of cultural deepfakes opens the way to redefine the dominant technocultural logic of our contemporary era. In 21 installations, Deepfakes art in its double represents seminal objects of Pan-Asian art and architecture from China, Cambodia, India, Malaysia, Japan, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. The Middle East and North Africa are represented by important sites in Egypt, Syria, and the Sudan, the United States of America, and significant European heritage sites in Armenia, Germany, and Italy, complete an encyclopedic offering made tangible through state-of-the-art imaging and interfaces that support interactive immersion. So, thank you very much. Sure, there's at least 10 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. It was so inspiring. We were stunned, no? At these all experiments all around the world, all around the globe, and so for this opening of this conference, of this Congress, so thank you so much for this. And really, all that experiences has been done in the last 10 years, more or less, more than 10 years. But in the last 5 years, things has changed a lot. No, we have seen technology advance with artificial intelligence, for example, other technologies of augmented reality, virtual reality technologies, also the screens, and also the metaverse, where we really are today. So also the pandemic has some good issues, as that the common people has get used to technology more easily, no? All the examples you've shown were really advanced in previously of the pandemic, of course. But the question will be, how do you think it has gone today that also the government, maybe the museum directors are more conscientiate about the importance of investing in technology, investing in digitalizing heritage is already, but also how to communicate that. That is, you have explained very, very interesting examples of how technology can humanize digital data and make it more sensible, more intuitive, more human at the end, no? What do you think for the near future? What do you think for the next 5 years?
So it's true that during the pandemic, museums were reacquainted with their digital side, we could say that. After the initial burst of activity in the early 90s on the internet, where there were a lot of very experimental works done, almost nothing was done up until the pandemic. Very little was actually achieved at an experimental level. And with the issues of lockdown, museums were able to reconfront that potential. I wouldn't say anything radical came out of it, though. Where we find ourselves today is that, and it's a real danger for all of us, is the way in which technological elite, I alluded to this, our machine learning colleagues, the computer scientists, who no longer believe that they need domain specialists to advance science. And this is not correct. So what we have in a situation now with with the development of algorithms in machine learning and deep learning is that we find that they're filled with bias, that they have ethical problems. If computer scientists work with domain specialists, they will find that museum databases are total treasure troves of excellent metadata and generations of work, of knowledge, of human knowledge. And these data sets are the perfect data sets to train machine learning algorithms on, actually, not the free things that you can get online by Google. So I think ensuring that we have and continue to drive or create the bridges between the heavy tech world and the cultural heritage sector, this is absolutely fundamental. So any opportunity to create these cross dialogues, to engage on these projects where people are speaking very different languages, is really going to be so critical for the future development, not only of museums, but of the world in general.
Thank you very much. We are in Hopin, so half of the audience is through the internet, and there the chat is saying, so interesting conference, thank you very much. So we have a parallel world there. Okay, I think you amuse us. We are really admiring you. It was really a pleasure having you here and listening all those experiences. I'm sure this opened the door to other experiences that will be told during these days, today and tomorrow here, during the morning and the afternoon. For sure, it is a challenge, but some examples like Sarah Kenderdine and the laboratory she leads, she comes from Australia, she's done lots of experiences there. So this materialization of information experiences, the transformation of museology at the end as a virtual and presential experience is all here, and is the time now to experiment with all that. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.